Coming up on CTV News tonight, the inquest into the deaths of victims of February's earthquake continues and a liquor ban for Papanui and Niraval begins next week. Welcome to CTV News. I'm Rob Cope-Williams. Today's hearing focused on the victims of the earthquake that were killed in the CBD. Emily Cooper was at the inquest.
Today's inquest moved from those who died in general buildings that failed during the earthquake, such as the CTV and PGC buildings, onto those who died in various areas of the CBD.
The central business district, primarily Cashel, Manchester, Colombo and High Streets, 28 persons.
A number of victims' deaths were looked at today, including mother and daughter, 18-year-old Kelsey Moore and 1-month-old Tanisha Prattley, Israeli nationals Ofer Lefi and Gaby Engel, and husband and wife Joan and Graham Weald. UK national Gregory Tobin had only been in New Zealand 1 month before the quake. He ran from the kitchen of Joe's garage, where he was a chef, onto the road and was hit by falling masonry. A family friend represented his family and asked the coroner if he was killed instantly. Coroner Martinga assured the family he did die instantly from unsurvivable head injuries. The family also wanted to know why it took search and rescue so long to recover his body when a friend found his body days earlier.
Gary Stead, a friend of the family, who advised that on the 24th of February he located and spoke to Lewis Watson, and then with the assistance of USAR personnel from Australia went to 194 Hereford Street outside Joe's garage and located the body of Gregory James Tobin. At that point the body was removed to the temporary mortuary facility established at Burnham Military Camp.
New mother Kelsey Moore was walking along Litchfield Street near the Reuben Blades building with her partner, carrying her baby when the quake hit. A building on Litchfield Street collapsed, trapping Kelsey and baby Tanisha under the rubble. Kelsey's father Jason addressed the coroner today and wanted to know if mother and baby were found together when their bodies were found. The inquest continues tomorrow.
Mayor Bob Parker has made a major announcement today in regards to the future of the Ellerslie Flower Show. Once again, Emily Cooper.
Today is the first day of spring, and what better day to make a major announcement on one of Christchurch's biggest events, the Ellerslie Flower Show. The Christchurch City Council today announced a major partnership for 3 years with New Plymouth-based Egmont Seed Company. This year's show was cancelled due to the February 22nd earthquake. However, the temporary tenting provided huge relief for earthquake evacuees.
It was only about 6 months ago when the Ellerslie International Flower Show was gearing up to go, and we had that extraordinary event on the 22nd of February. And in a way, we were so lucky that we had the infrastructure here, because I will never forget the sight on that day of, first of all, thousands of people pouring here into this area, and how we were able to turn much of that infrastructure into emergency accommodation, especially for people who had been in hotels in the city, so that the Ellerslie infrastructure served a purpose for which it had not been intended, but it was miraculous that we had it here, and it made a real difference. But of course it was impossible to even contemplate going forward with the show. And so after all the work and all the prep and all the work by the nurseries and the clubs and the gardens, all the planning and everything that had gone in, all of that just had to be forgotten as we tried to cope with the scale of what was in front of us.
Mayor Parker says he hopes the show will bring a sense of normality back to Christchurch.
I think it's incredible. This is a community event again. So many clubs, so many thousands of people get directly involved, for businesses, nurseries. It's big business. And for all of us, it's just this wonderful event. And I think next year, as we go into the rebuild of the city, to have a colourful, beautiful event like this in the heart of Christchurch, in this now very sacred piece of land that Hagley Park has become, is sensational. I'm really happy.
He also hopes 2012's show will bring record numbers back to the city and that it will continue for the next 3 years. Mayor Parker says Christchurch has a huge dedication to the show.
I'm convinced that our show next year will be a big show, not only because of the turnout from Canterbury, but I think you'll be amazed at how many people will come from around New Zealand.
All of the show's previous sponsors will also be returning when the show is held at Hagley Park from the 7th of March until the 11th of March 2012.
This next show, we believe, truly will be the best show that we've ever run.
Coming up after the break, a liquor ban for the suburbs of Papanui, Mirabel. Welcome back. A liquor ban has been imposed in Mirabel and Papanui after the suburbs saw a huge increase in patrons coming from the city central.
In a week, a temporary liquor ban will be implemented in the Mirabel-Papanui area as part of a graduated strategy in reducing harm around alcohol.
When I say graduated strategy, the liquor ban will allow police officers to actually address individuals that are hanging around drinking actually outside the bars. The way I sort of put it is it's a bit like a lighthouse with a light, and all the moths, being the predators and people that actually abuse alcohol, sometimes come. Majority of people being the good people who just want to go and have fun, but some of these predators are actually people that, for example, may sexually assault women who are drunk, may do robberies. So the liquor ban helps us address some of those issues before they become big.
So a liquor ban allows the police to talk to these potential offenders drinking outside bars.
Policing's a little bit of a science these days, and it's actually a small bit of the pie which gives us a bit of power to talk to individuals that may be hanging outside the bar drinking, which they shouldn't be. But it's often those ones that are drinking outside the bar can be your predators. They will actually have a drink there, but they're really eyeing up someone to roll or rape, or some woman they might want to approach that might make a bad decision.
The earthquake has caused a rewiring of where people go to drink, with the central city being closed, so the suburbs, which aren't designed for large groups of drinkers, have become the hotspots.
Places where previously weren't sort of like a CBD type drink areas are now becoming, so Mirabel is getting a lot more people drinking there, and the same with Papanui.
Calling for the need of an expansion.
While we had a permanent ban already in Papanui, we've extended it to actually include some of the new outlets that are there, and we're actually looking at the ban in relation to Mirabel as a new incentive, as just a part of this graduated strategy.
But the bans aren't permanent in the hope people will move back into the CBD to drink when it's reopened.
They're temporary bans. The reason we're doing them temporary is that the evidence is that this is a rewiring from the CBD. So as we open the CBD back up, maybe it'll rewire back into the CBD. So we're just doing it that way. And it'll start around about the 8th of September.
So drinkers beware, socialising in the same spot as you have been may become illegal by next weekend.
The ban comes after another ban was successfully put in place in the Riccarton Island area last month. And although Christchurch may have lost the chance to host the Rugby World Cup games due to February's earthquake, Canterburyans will still have the opportunity to see some of the All Blacks. All Black captain Richie McCaw and number 8 Kieran Reid will visit Rangiora tomorrow. The boys will be at Victoria Park Band Rotunda for interviews and autographs at 10, followed with rugby activities at Rangiora New Life School and then Rangiora High School. And then at 12:35 they will be met by the Mayor on High Street. And staying with rugby, match finals were played yesterday at Hagley Park for a high school competition. However, this rugby was an all-girl competition. The final saw Christchurch Girls High take on Rangiruru and Villa Maria take on Middleton Grange. Girls High was the winner of the day, beating Rangi 24-10. This is the first time they've won the competition, but they did get some personal training before the game from All Blacks Richie McCaw and Dan Carter. Girls High coach Sarah Bickham says that the standout player of the day was number 13 Corina Wiley. Sarah says the competition is great for girls rugby and says it's growing in numbers. Coming up after the break, it'll be your local weather. Welcome back. Churches around Christchurch will mark the 1-year anniversary of the first major Canterbury earthquake this Sunday.
More than 100 churches will come together this Sunday to mark the first anniversary of the September 4 earthquake.
It's really exciting. Over 100 churches in Christchurch and beyond, so I'm including Kaiapoi and places like that, have come together, churches of all different stripes and sizes, and 14 different locations, mostly schools and churches, will host an ecumenical service, and it's a celebration of hope.
The services are for everyone, Christian or not, and the Christchurch Church Leaders Group have tried not to restrict the 14 locations holding the services to churches, but more neutral ground.
Non-Christians don't want to go to a church. They feel awkward. I can understand that. It's an unusual space for them. So we were hoping that we would use all schools, for example, or community, but they're all booked up. So some are in churches, some are in schools, some are in auditoriums. But it's not just for Christians. It is for people looking for a reason to hope on a day that is the first anniversary.
So for those who aren't so familiar with churches,
it's not a hard sell. It's not we're here to convert you. It is we are with you as we mark this anniversary to celebrate the hope that is within us.
Bishop Matthews says having a place to go on such an impacting occasion is essential, and people should not isolate themselves, but instead come to share their thoughts with their fellow Cantabrians.
I think at this time, one of the worst things that can happen is that people become isolated. Don't stay home and cry. Get out and be with other people and raise your spirits. Make an act of hope. In light of this anniversary, it's really important we do that.
Each service will incorporate 3 short DVD messages, one by the Deputy Mayor Nairi Button, by All Black Michael Jones and by Bishop Victoria Matthews. The services acting as a chance to reflect on the beginning of this tragedy.
It will be a time for the community to gather, remember, but most of all, look ahead and hope for the future.
Mayor Bob Parker says the Central City Plan is a hugely exciting vision despite some criticism.
I think the Central City Plan has cemented some vision in place for our community in terms of the Central City, and that feels like some real progress, and it feels like the community have genuinely been listened to and taken some control of our collective destiny, and that it's an exciting vision, and I think it's very achievable. We've had a wonderful series of speakers from overseas, and I don't know, if everyone's got along to that. The turnouts weren't that big, but the wisdom and the tension, really, I suppose. They also, it wasn't all like they just came along and rubber stamped what we were doing. There were questions around aspects of it and deliverability and so on, and I thought that was an excellent piece of work for us to see. So
yeah, me too.
I'm feeling really good about what we've got to so far in terms of what Council's delivering, and I just share everybody else's concerns around the bigger picture and the resolution and the timing and the things that we need.
Were you surprised with some of the things that have been brought up? Say, for example, was it Miota that said something about 60% of the buildings fell down, but only 20 to 30% of them should have fallen down, or some of the ones on the demo list, they shouldn't be coming down? Was it interesting hearing that?
I thought it was incredibly interesting, and Kit is a brilliant guy, and he's been present at a lot of disaster zones around the world, and I think what he's saying is that you can actually rebuild a badly damaged building and get a really good result. And I think the only concern we've ever had as a city and as citizens, in my view, is we want a safe city. And conventional wisdom has been, well, to make it safe, you knock everything down and you build new. And what he's saying is, no, you can actually, by rebuilding some of the buildings, create just as safe an outcome. And the issue is going to be, I think, where's the gap in the money between, what an owner can afford to do and the safe building outcome. I think it will cause people to relook, because there are still a lot of buildings in there that in the Central City Zone and other areas that have yet to be demolished. And I think anything that is introduced that causes us to say, well, hang on, maybe we could save, a more attractive older building. And we've had it's been pretty much a clean sweep, and that's been the plan. He's causing us well, I think causing Sarah perhaps to rethink some of that approach. And I think once again, that's a healthy tension to have in the plan.
Exactly.
So yeah, I think it's great.
So you'll be listening to some of these ones, or listening to all of them?
Well, I'm actually, there's a video, and they'll all be online, and it's just, I would just say to people, once they're online, I don't think they're there today, maybe today, have a look at them. And, it's certainly not a bunch of people rubber stamping and being yes people to council or anybody else. They're genuinely international people with a lot of experience, and it's a very useful input.
Now, is this going on the City Council website?
Yep, yeah, it'll be on the on our Share an Idea website, which is now morphed into the Have Your Say, which is great. Tell us what you think.
Now, City Council is calling for the draft Central City Plan to be extended by a week. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, we've got a very, very tight timetable. I've already actually had a chat a couple of weeks ago with key staff around that, and I think that we've worked under an incredibly tight timetable to get to where we are now. And I think our community also understands that in order to have their input, there is a period of time. It's still available. We're not out of that yet. It doesn't close down till around about the 16th of September. I would be much more inclined at this moment to say, come on, you can put a submission in. You don't need us to keep extending it. Just get into it and do it. We're all, as a community, I think, having a vested interest in getting this piece of work completed. So, there's that tension between delay and procrastination, and sooner or later you have to draw a line in the sand. You just keep popping it out for another week here and there. The whole system starts to take a lot more time to deliver the process. I think we've worked hard to get it to you on time, and I think we're saying to our community, we'd like you to work hard to get it back to us on time so we can keep the hammer down on this.
The news that the bill for the Christchurch earthquake will be $3 billion more than expected comes as no surprise to some.
The extent of the earthquake is clearly large. It's going to go on costing, putting things right. The bill is going to continue to inflate.
Yeah, I think it's going to go up a few more, isn't it?
There's more to come yet. I think all of us, even at a personal level, are managing remediation or putting things right, and what starts off to be a job of X very quickly turns into 2X, and before you know where you are, it's 3X. So that's really the issue, that fixing things takes money.
And there's no out clauses or overrun clauses when you're dealing with earthquakes and Mother Nature.
Absolutely not. It's got to be done. It's got to be done. And so putting back the infrastructure, putting back the built environment is going to cost.
How's it going to impact on the whole of New Zealand?
Well, the reality is the government said it's going to borrow for it. And remember, we've got government services equals the sum of taxes and borrowing. So if we don't increase taxes, we have to borrow more. If we borrow more, it has that sad impact of increasing the exchange rate, which means we earn less. And so we're in quite a tight and difficult situation. The reality is we should be moving towards higher taxes. A number of people I talk to, and I say this is the real conclusion that we need to come to, sort of don't really like that conversation. I don't like that conversation.
You could fudge it until December.
Maybe, and for good reason, perhaps. But the reality of that simple equation, services spending equals tax plus borrowing. If we borrow more, we can save tax in order to deliver what it is we want to deliver. But one way or another, that particular pipe is going to have to be paid. And if we really ramp up borrowing, that borrowing will increase the exchange rate, and that will reduce the external sector's ability to earn more.
There's a whole lot of people at the moment doing mental calculations of the interest bill on $3 billion.
Don't worry about what the interest bill is, it's just big. The actual numbers are important, but they're not that critical. I mean, remember, we talk about $7 billion as the potential SOE sales in the next government. $7 billion is out of, if I get the number exactly right, 1,013 billion income over the forecast period. So $7 billion's almost in the planning margin. It can come and go as a result of reduced growth.
What about the other global influences on all this?
Well, you know, we've got it tough. We are borrowing to deal with these problems. In borrowing, we are influencing our exchange rate, and we are looking to our external sector to make a good living for New Zealand. That line, the 1,000 billion line, is the forecast sales, let's put it that way, of New Zealand. That is a requirement from our exporters to do more. But if our markets have gone soft because of difficulties in Europe, Greece having problems, Spain having problems, Italy having problems, the IMF not getting on with the European Central Bank, and today they're arguing about a set of calculations they've each done and they're both saying they're wrong. The US contemplating, however, softly at this moment, QE3. These things are going to have an impact on our ability to earn from offshore. So these things are not it's not sweetness and light right now.
We look at the EU situation, because you've just named about half of them, and they're not going to be in a great position to pay us for our lamb, beef or dairy, are they?
Well, again, it's the consumers are pulling their heads in. They are starting to think really hard about reducing debt. Fortunately, the things that will get hit first in that regard are going to be consumer durables and cars. It isn't going to be food. So to some extent, the food elements of exports will work well. The most of New Zealand's other exports, where the sort of hard electronics and stuff, tends to be sold business to business rather than consumer, and that will probably continue better. But nevertheless, soft Northern Hemisphere markets mean a potential sales problem for New Zealand.
That's CTV News. I'm Rob Cope-Williams.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.